he is one of the most respected photographers in the world. Digital manipulation, unconventional models, live streaming, avatars, and NFTs, he's done it all before, making him one of the world's most visionary creatives. For the last 30 years, he has given us images that push the boundaries of beauty, bringing together fashion and innovation. He is the person behind countless images that have become iconic in the history of contemporary fashion. He's also our very important guest today, and of course I'm talking about Nick Knight, the brilliant and restless mind behind ShowStudio. We also have here with us Giovanna Casimiro, Web3 expert, head of Metaverse Fashion Week, and also my partner in crime on this project. I'm your hostess, Camila Yahn, and this is the first episode of a new podcast series about physical digital projects that address creativity, fashion communities, conversations around the future of technology. So, Nick, thank you again for your time. We are all fans of your work. We've been, watching you and for many, many years, since the 90s. And well, I would just like to start, how are you, and can you tell us where you are now?
Do you want the simple answer or the long answer?
The long answer.
Okay, well, the long answer is, well, starting simply, I'm at ShowStudio. So this is where I come every day and virtually every day of the week, which is a sort of arts platform where we do broadcasting and filming and we make CGI. And so it's a sort of interesting environment to be in. And ShowStudio is housed in an old church, which is quite an interesting place in itself. So it's a very nice big daylight studio with lots of people coming in and out. So that's an environment that I'm talking to you from. I had a conversation in the car on the way here this morning, which was one of those conversations that makes you think about life. A friend of mine was telling me about somebody who has actually just been shot. So it's a little... And then we started talking about the prison system and how, people are conditioned just to end up in prison. And, so we got into a kind of heavy conversation. And so I arrive here trying to think, should I just put that to one side and not talk to you about that? But you asked me how I am. And the truthful answer is a little, I think these things that come in from real life that make you feel a bit destabilized, I think is a looking at it, because it's reality for lots of people. And and I think I've always been fascinated by life in general, but right all across all the different spectrums. And I don't sort of I don't feel comfortable in life. I don't think life is an easy thing, nor do I think it should be an easy thing, actually. But I do find it fascinating, and I find people ultimately incredibly fascinating. And so when I was speaking to my friend this morning, the way he was discussed, he's from, not such an affluent background, and he's trying to make his career through singing and rapping. And I just, I was a little bit touched by what he was telling me. He was saying that he had to some degree, stop being with some of the people he'd grown up with because conditioning that society puts on them actually just pushes them down and down and down. And doesn't elevate, so he has to isolate himself as an artist and try and sort of keep himself out of trouble. So anyway, it's a bit of a serious way to start the conversation, and maybe a little bit too heavy. We don't want to kind of frame the whole of the conversation within that, but it is reality, and I think there are some questions that you want to talk to me about reality. So
yeah. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry for your friend's friend. And yeah, this is life here in Brazil. This is huge part of our reality.
I'm sure.
And I totally understand where your feelings coming from. But as a ShowStudio fan and viewer and reader for so many years, I want to start our interview from where you have been, what you have been building with ShowStudio. I see a lot of openness for conversation and interaction with fans through social media, and the fact that you arrived here and you said a very personal thing that happened to you this morning. it shows how open you are to life and to realities and to people and to young people also. And so you have panel discussions on contemporary topics, and ShowStudio has become like an active voice in fashion and a space for young creatives. So what it is like for you, Nick, to manage this entity that ShowStudio has become, you know, always responding to what's going on in the world and starting new conversations?
Well, it's an interesting thing to manage. I try and not look at myself as a manager, although I might look like one. But it's interesting because ShowStudio, I think the thing that sort of occurred to me, and actually more recently, is that ShowStudio is not a business. So we're not here to make money. Nothing we do really is designed primarily to make money. We didn't start ShowStudio to make money. It wasn't a how to get rich quick on the internet scheme. It wasn't and money has never really been the motivation behind what I do, nor has any degree of fame. But I think ShowStudio is unique in that way, because nearly everything is about selling more units, about getting more followers, about making money, about advertising, about blah, 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 blah. And creativity and success are measured in those terms. And I think that's not entirely healthy, said the man sitting in front of the picture of the French riots. But I think the reason I'm in front of a beautiful Barbary picture of the 1966 French riots is because that's still how I feel. I still feel that society needs change. And I think to some degree, money is a problem. Money is a problem. The pursuit of money, especially in creativity, is a problem because it becomes the sort of almost a defining factor in whether a piece of work is good or bad, or whether it's considered successful. So I think that there is something interesting in ShowStudio in the fact that its primary reason is not here to make money. And I think that's quite refreshing, and I like that. It is a big platform, and we see lots of different people, and it provides me with an awful lot of pleasure. You know, sometimes in the morning I wake up super early because I can't wait to get to ShowStudio because there's so much interesting things. We have about 15 people who work here, so it's not massive. And I've never really wanted to take it big, partly because if you get bigger than, 15 people, you can't talk to all your people you work with every day. I don't want to turn into a manager. I don't want to turn into a boss. I don't want to turn into somebody who is not in contact with the people that they work with. So I try and keep it reasonably to a few people. And already 15 to 20 people is a lot. But I never want to, I don't want to sort of have an organization that has thousands of employees. What would be the point? So I've sort of actively fought against investment. I've fought against people trying to make ShowStudio into something I don't want it to be. I think the nicest thing about ShowStudio is it's free to follow its desires. So if we're interested in something within reason, we can follow that and we can do that. We don't have an agenda to follow in so much that we don't have to repeat formulas if we don't like them or we're bored with them. We can start a series and stop it without having to sort of justify that. We don't have to have famous people. It can be people nobody's ever heard of. As long as the work is interesting and that we find it interesting to do, then I think that's the main reason that I do ShowStudio. I really would only want to do it if I find it exciting. So, if it keeps on changing, it's because, like life, you don't want to do the same thing again and again and again. You want to do things which feel new and challenging. And I think ShowStudio is free to be able to do that. We do a lot of 3D printing around here. We do a lot of scanning. We do a lot of AI. We do a lot of reel shoots. There's no particular thing that makes ShowStudio, and we lost that, it wouldn't be the same. So we can change. And I think that's really important. And different people come into ShowStudio, different editors. We've had some amazing people: Alex Fury, Penny Martin, Lou Stoppard. There's been some incredible people that have been through ShowStudio and then gone on to do their own careers. And they change it a little bit when they're here. So they do influence how it is. And sometimes that influence can be quite profound and can last for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. But that's fine. And I like that. I like the fact that it can be influenced by other people. It isn't my platform. It's not about me. It's about creativity, I hope. So that's why I think it's still exciting. So that's why I still find it exciting, and still a challenge. You know, life isn't, in my opinion, best if it's easy. And I think we started a conversation clearly showing that it's easy. But I don't without getting too philosophical, and please excuse me if it does tend to go towards that, but I think that we shouldn't be looking for happiness. I think that's a false goal. I think there are a few false goals we are presented. Money is one, fame is another one, happiness is another one. Maybe, so I get all this money, I'll be famous and I'll be happy. No,
not true.
A, you won't, and B, happiness, you don't want to be happy. You know, people who aren't very bright are happy. You know, you don't want to be a happy idiot. You want to be somebody who feels that life is rich and fulfilling and full of things that you don't understand and you want to learn. It's not the idea that you get to some sort of benign state where you just go around smiling all the time like a fool. You know, you want to feel that life makes you feel fulfilled. We're only on this planet for a little bit, unfortunately. So we might as well have the richest and the fullest life we can have. And I think the pursuit of happiness as a goal is wrong. That doesn't mean I want everybody to be miserable. So please don't misunderstand me. I just think that people predominate that. And actually, if we're looking for anything, it's fulfillment and a sense of purpose, a sense that we are worth being here, that we have some reason to be here, that we are connected to other people, that we are part of this society, part of this species, part of this planet, part of future, part of intelligence, all those sorts of things. I think that's important, that we see a reason to be, a raison d'être, as they say in French. You know, that's, I think, is important. And I think we are given these puerile goals of happiness and wealth, and I think they're really misleading. Anyway, so I'm not sure I'm answering your question or just going off into sort of tin pot philosophies about life. But it really is a sort of, you know, ShowStudio is a pleasure to do because it is a challenge.
So I just loved what I heard, and I think we shared that vision with you. It's truly amazing that you, you know, the mind that created ShowStudio is. Oh, my phone just dropped. Hold on.
Don't worry.
So kind. And do you think you have like a romantic view on this industry that because fame and money, you know, it's always been so important in the fashion business. It's very elitist, it's very rich, it's very white. So when you bring me this point of view, do you think you are romantic? What would you call?
Well, I hope I'm romantic. I like the idea of being romantic. If you mean by that, am I delusional? Which is another version of romantic. Let's face it, we all know from our own lives. I'm maybe optimistically slightly naive. That would be, I guess, a sort of version of that. You know, I think you make the life you lead, or you know, you can only sort of want to have, you know, what you want. It's no good sort of, you know, being cynical about things and saying, oh, it's all this, this. If you want to make it change, try and make it change. I think we can only try and do that. I mean, yes, so in answer to your question, yes, I am a romantic. Sometimes I rather wish I was a sort of, you know, purist, modernist, clear thinker, but I'm not. You know, I am swayed by emotion a lot. So I do allow myself to indulge that. So I do have a romantic view of it, but I don't think that means it's wrong. I think that, you know, you can be, you can fantasize and dream and imagine things, but that makes you a romantic. But I don't think that's the wrong way to approach things. I think it is a way, but, you know, there are, like everything, there are different versions of that. And sometimes it's good to be clear thinking and straightforward. Realistic, but I tend to shy away from that a bit. So I tend to go the other way.
Yeah. So, Nick, we are witnessing a revolution happening in communication now and also in the creative process, especially for photographers. Oh, my headphone, my ear.
We're not quite there with the revolution yet.
What?
The revolution
Sorry.
keeps falling. The revolution keeps falling. See, I think that
Yes.
The trouble with revolutions.
So that's what I want to hear about. So how do you see how is your view on this moment with artificial intelligence and its impact in art and photography, for instance?
I'm so sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said.
I think she was asking, like, looking to the.
Are you listening to me?
We can hear you. It's just a bit echoey.
Yeah. Well, this revolution, I mean, with artificial intelligence in art and photography. Yeah. I'd like to know your opinion about it.
Okay. I think it's incredibly exciting. I think you're quite right in that it is a revolution. It is a visual revolution, a communications revolution. It's a revolution in all the forms of communication. And I think it's incredibly exciting. It's happening faster and in a bigger way than I thought. When I came across the internet 4 years ago and started ShowStudio, obviously it was set out on that trajectory. So that was the path we were going down, looking at different ways of communicating, looking at new technology. When we started ShowStudio, there were none of these. You couldn't take a picture on your phone. So it was before Facebook. It was before all of that, before Instagram, before any of those things. So, we felt that there was something happening, and quite clearly all those things did happen. And now the world is a very, very, very different place. I think it's a huge change. It reminds me, and I don't want to make it seem small by this, but it reminds me of the change that happened when photography was first invented. How painting, traditional arts reacted to photography and said, oh, it's just a machine. It can't show the soul. There's no art in it. It's going to make us painters redundant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there is a sort of wave of fear and negativity that goes with change. And I think because it's such a huge change that we are embarking upon and is happening to us, I think that it comes with a lot of fear. And fear is a necessary thing, but not necessarily the only thing that we should be feeling. There is also a lot of excitement and a lot of possibilities which are opening up, which were unimaginable before, unimaginable. So I think we really have got to, especially the people in the arts like yourselves, have got to embrace this. We've got to try and work with it, and we've got to try and push it even further. My worry is, and it's a fear I have, which I've expressed already, is that big business will be too much involved and that the military will be too much involved. Mm-hmm. And I think those are scary things, because this is the future of civilization we're looking at, without making any too bigger claims. And I don't want the future to be shaped like the past. The past has been shaped by greed and killing and evil and unpleasantness and everything else. We all have our own histories, and then none of them are good. So I don't want to. We have an opportunity now to slightly move civilization on, and I think we really need to try and invest in the most positive way. And I think you will find it very hard to get away from the negativity and fear which is put around this. This, of course, it's a big step into the unknown. And I think a lot of people are quite rightly concerned, but that shouldn't make them turn away. And what I get worried about is when I see people who are in the arts turning away from it and decrying it and saying, no, this is not for us, and blah, 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 blah. This is all about plagiarism and all about, whatever the fears come out. I think that misses a bigger point. It's so important. If the art world and people who care about life, turn away from this, you are just going to have the people that care about money and killing. And that is not how we want our future. That can't be our future again. So we do have an opportunity now to try and do something. I find it quite strange that we have something, within social media and with AI and some of the CGI and some of the things we're seeing, which is so much better than what we had before. You know, that you don't have one voice telling you exactly how it is, and there is no choice. You don't have this restriction of how you're supposed to behave, how you're supposed to be, what gender you're supposed to be, what you know, what you're supposed to be as a person even. You know, all this is freeing up. You know, this is a moment of huge possibilities. So, you know, I think that some of the things that I see written about social media are so negative. And it's just, you think, well, of course there's that, but there's also an incredibly positive side to this. You know, I can now have a conversation with people all across this planet. That's never been possible before. So why is that a bad thing? The democratization of the ability to create an image. So I can create an image on my iPhone, clunk, and publish it globally. You know, everybody, not everybody, lots and lots of people can do that. That is a democratization of image making. You know, before it was only a very few people who had the craft or the skill or the money or the position to be able to express themselves visually. So most of the population were visually illiterate. Now, most of the population are engaging not only with imagery in general, but self-image. You know, the idea that people, you know, taking power onto themselves. I think that's fantastic. You know, there are people who were before fashion, that we want to talk about fashion, was so narrow in what it would suggest was acceptable. So, you know, only a certain sort of woman was supposed to be on the front cover of a certain sort of magazine. Now it's much, much wider. You know, I won't say I've fought, but I've been behind lots of movements to try and recognize beauty in many different forms, not just a sort of classical form, whether it's physical ability or skin color or whatever it is, because that's how I feel about life. So I didn't want it represented in these very narrow formats. And I think social media and our access to be able to talk to each other in this way has really opened things up, really changed, you know, the shape that women are. It's really changed, you know, I don't mean the shape they are, because women are all different shapes like men, like everybody's different shapes. But I mean, what people feel beautiful being. You know, people don't feel that they're not just one particular vision of a woman, that they're wrong. I think that acceptance of beauty comes in so many different forms and in so many different ways is really positive, and that comes through social media. Before, you had, you know, certain magazines, should we say, certain publications had a monopoly on what was proposed as acceptably beautiful, and then, you know, now you have, you know, people who have incredible amounts, like millions and millions and millions of followers, way outstripping any of these people who before said, I'll tell you what's right and what's wrong. And you have many different voices and many different opinions. I think that's a really positive thing. You said I was a romantic. I'm also an optimist. I'm an optimist in humankind, and I'm an optimist in evolution. So I think almost by definition, evolution, you know, goes towards the better. Species do not evolve for the worst. They get better and better. That's, I guess, probably the definition or explanation of evolution. And I think we are evolving. I think one of the mistakes we make is to presume that we are at the end of that evolutionary journey, rather than admitting we're somewhere on it. We don't know where we are on it. We don't know where it's going. We know where it's been, but we don't know where it's going. So we shouldn't, and I had to phrase this very carefully because I don't want to upset people by saying this, but we shouldn't be arrogant that humankind is the end of the evolutionary journey. And I think that's, people go, oh, you know, you mustn't attack humans. It's like, I'm not. I'm just saying we need to be open-minded. And I think if we're looking for anything to hold on to as a sort of, you know, something that we can all come together, it's intelligence. And that's the thing that I think that we are here for. We are here for the proliferation, for the expansion, for the continuation of intelligence. And I think we might well be alone in the universe. So we have quite a role to play here. There is no evidence that there is anybody else in the universe. None. So we can say, well, it's so vast. There must be other people. There must be other species. You know, there must be a God. But there is no evidence. None. And there never has been. So we can at least hold the theory that there is no God and there's nobody else in the universe. We can hold that theory. I'm not saying it is right. I'm saying we can hold on to that because there's no evidence to the contrary. So if that is the case, and let us just think in those terms for a minute, then our purpose as a species is to continue to evolve and to continue to support intelligent life in the universe and to proliferate intelligent life in the universe, to expand it. Because without it, and if we are alone, and we may well be, and if we decide that we're not going to do that and we kill ourselves off or we ruin this planet and don't have another one to go to and it finishes, then in that case, it's finished. So I think we can imagine a role. As much as we can imagine Father Christmas and Jesus Christ, we can imagine a role where we have a place in the universe, a destiny in the universe, where we have to continue to evolve and we have to continue to support the idea that we are alone and it is down to us and it isn't somebody else that's going to take over at the last minute. So, they're big things. I absolutely say this on the full knowledge that people very much believe in God. They very much believe in aliens. And I'm not taking that away, but they must also countenance that there could be another opinion, and it's worth acting on, at least thinking about acting on something that doesn't go with that. I think to put all your ideas in one thing and say, well, I'm convinced and nothing else can happen is very foolish. So I think we should at least countenance that. And so we should be looking at, that as a possibility for why we're here. Which ultimately is when we're all lying on our deathbed, we're going to say, well, what was it all about? Why did we exist? I'm I try to be very careful not to offend anybody. I have enormous respect for people who have religious beliefs of all different persuasions. So I'm not trying to offend people. I'm just trying to say we need to be open-minded. And you talk about a revolution in visualization and creativity. There's a revolution in culture. There's a revolution in our species. We're changing. It is possible that, we are evolving into a completely different species. Because we are a carbon-based life form, does not mean that's the only successful life form there will ever be. There could be a silicon-based life form, which can be just as capable, if not more capable, of holding intelligence and doing all the things that perhaps we're not capable of. So I think it's foolhardy to in some way bury our heads in the sand, to fill ourselves up with fear and dogma and hatred and all those sort of negative things, not to use the intelligence which we are so clearly gifted with to try and be, to try and look at where we are in life. Having said to you at the beginning of this, I would try and do a light and cheerful conversation. I'm not managing very well, so you have to excuse me. But it's very hard to sort of...
No, I think that not knowing is what makes people scared. And so I think this is really important to talk about it, and to share our different point of views, but I agree with you. But I think Gigi wants to come along, join us in the conversation as well.
I just raised my hand because I think Nick was mentioning a very interesting angle about we being a little bit arrogant or thinking that we are in the pinnacle of our tech revolution. And Nick, I don't know if you have that feeling, but working a lot in the Web3 space, sometimes I feel that legacy is left behind. It's almost like there is a gap between what came before us, and then somebody said, "Oh, everything we're doing now is new, never was done it before by anyone else." And I think that's a big problem when we stop thinking on the ones that came before us, because they were disruptive at their time, right? When you look at Georges Méliès, he was super disruptive. You look at the beginning of the cinema, at land art, at conceptual art, so many languages that came before us and they try and they disrupted. I think when you have this gap and you feel that only the present is disruptive enough, it's a problem, because then we leave legacy behind and we are building legacy for the future. So do we want to be forgotten, right? In the future? No, right? We want to be present. It's a continuum of cultural construction. So just wanted to mention that because I think it's very powerful to remember that we're not alone among ourselves, and we are just the result of generations of creatives. We got here because of them also.
All different cultures and all different persuasions. I think sometimes when I look back and I go to a museum or spend some hours on Google or spend some hours in a book, you can quickly become so much in awe of past art, past civilizations, that it makes it almost impossible to go on. You see the work that's done by other people, by other artists and thinkers. And, you know, you can become intimidated by their brilliance. And I think that, although is very grounding and important that we remain humble, we also do have to go on ourselves for in whatever way we can. So I'm quite well aware of a huge and amazing legacy everywhere across this planet, in every art form there has ever been. Sometimes it can be very, it can be hard to realize how great other people have been in the past, and then go on and still continue doing the small things that we are doing. But I think you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe, you know, that you have got a reason to be here and a reason to do something, and do whatever we can, you know, to do that in our different ways, and different parts of the world, and different ways we work. But you know, I spent a lot of time looking back into the past, and looking at, you know, I didn't train as an artist. I didn't go to art college to learn how to study art. I went to medical college to learn how to be a doctor, which I was incredibly not good at, because I had no desire and no, I think we've lost that. But anyway, I think I was not interested. So I had no application at all. And so I feel that I'm catching up with my education I never had now. And so I find things, you know, people talk to me about cultural things, which just blow my mind. I went to a place in Madrid, in Spain, a company called Factum, who do amazing 3D scanning work. They're scanning inside the pyramids. They're scanning, you know, ancient tombs in South America that are now being sort of, basically, unfortunately, ransacked and ruined, so the land can be taken, but they preserve these tombs by 3D scanning the rubble that's been left of them and piecing it back together again. So they're doing incredible work. But these are incredible societies, you know, that have happened in the past. And it is that feeling that once you start to look at these things, they are so incredible. It can stop you moving forward. So that's my only danger of putting too much reverence to the work that's happened in the past. We also have to realize where we are at our particular time on the planet.
So we are talking about legacy, society, and future. And so you have always been pushing boundaries and using the new technologies. And we're going to get to that very soon. But Gigi is also a Web3 expert. So when we talk about the metaverse, bring the metaverse into the conversation, yes. Do you think that it's really challenging gender and social expression, or is still a very wide, straight, and rich environment?
You know, it's bound to be a bit that. You know, a lot of it there was a big push in it, fueled on money, and fueled in making money, which is, as I said right at the beginning, not my favorite way to create art. So, or readers to create art. So there was a bit of that, there is a bit of that. But I think it's accessible to lots of people, whereas art previously wasn't so accessible. I think there have been a whole generation or 2 generations of people making digital art that found nowhere to put it, and no galleries that bought it, no ways of making a living through doing it, although again that's not necessarily the end of the be-all. But so I do think that there is a new sort of generation of people going into this, which aren't just, I think, what do you say, white and straight. I think there is a bit of that. There is a new, more global access to this. It's very hard to tell when you're online. You don't necessarily know the identity of the person that you're dealing with, and I think that's interesting and entirely freeing of us as people, to be honest. It's sort of interesting thing. I'm having an avatar of myself made for Icon One, because the end of Icon One project is a performance, of which I'm part of. So I have to have my avatar made just like Icon One. And I'm gonna look the way I look. And I'm not sure whether that's a sign of sort of over-satisfaction and sort of arrogance, or whether it's just a sort of, acceptance. When you have to re-see your own image. So, I've been 3D scanned and been busy remaking me at the moment. And I've spoken into an AI and it can speak with my voice and all these sorts of things. So, but I'm not seeking to change who I am. So I'm not seeking, I could change lots of things. And a lot of what I do when I'm creating imagery is to change what I see with my eye and try and create what I see with my soul or my heart or my brain or whatever. I've never thought that my role was really just to show people what I can see already. That seems fairly pointless and boring. So I try and show things that I can't see. But I'm not doing that with my own self-image, which is, I think, is probably interesting in a small way. And I'm not sure what it says. I'm not sure that the fact that I'm okay to be the way I am physically in real life or this life is okay, or whether that shows an arrogance and a smugness. And whether actually, I'd be better to be more imaginative with how I look and more, but it's not something I particularly feel I want to do for this. But it is, I think what I'm driving at is that it does give us the possibility to reimagine ourselves. So the kind of, the sort of demographic that you mentioned, although is part of the sort of push into Web3, a part of it, not all of it, is there. I think what Web3 does allow us to do is to become very different in our visual presentation of ourselves and also our cultural presentations of things. There's a new version of ChatGPT out at the moment. It came out 2 days ago. It can fuel so many different versions of ourselves. We all have our own physical constraints, but my avatar can sing, it can dance, it can do anything it wants. So I think that freedom is fascinating. Quite where we take it and what we do, I don't know. So I'm not so bothered about the sort of reflection of a sort of slightly unpleasant demographic. Unpleasant by the fact that it's been a demographic that's been always for the last, recent history in charge of the way things are. I think that that's not necessarily what's going to continue in Web3. It's a long way of answering a question by saying to you, I think Web3 gives us possibilities to have very, very different versions of who we are. And that's good because, we have seen far too many old white men in suits, just like me, telling us what we should do and what we should think and what's okay. So I think, to have a whole different visual is a good thing. Sorry, it's a slightly muddled answer. I hope it makes some sense.
No, it does, totally. Well, first I want to say that you are beautiful, Nick. So whatever avatar you're creating, it'll be,
It'll look like this realistically.
So, but what I was talking about when I said it is, and Gigi can also contribute to that answer, because part of the Web3 is being built and created by corporations, and that's what I fear, because inside these corporations there is no diversity. We know that, and so that's why it's when Gigi and I talk about it. My main concern is this new world. Is it for everyone? Can everyone engage? Can everyone be part of it? So of course, everything you said. There's an incredible side, freedom. There's in it, for all of us. So, but what I ask myself, and I think the difference that, from my perspective, I can make in this new world, so that it doesn't start the future, but based in old values,
I totally hear what you're saying.
Bring that conversation,
I totally hear what you're saying, and I think you pick on a good and very relevant point. I think it comes down to how we want to live our lives, and I think it comes down to money and the pursuit of money. I think that's probably at the center of a lot of the problems that we have. I think, really it's if you look at art's turned into a commodity. So if you look at, the great well-known artists of the 18th, 19th, 20th, whatever centuries, they've become commodities. They are bought by incredibly rich people for incredibly rich people to sell and and I don't think that's what we want to see. If no art was worth more than $100, no art, from Van Gogh to Michelangelo to Warhol to anybody you care to mention, You know, maybe that would get closer to the reason the artist makes the art. And I think if you are concerned, and I think you're quite rightly concerned, that in a new space that we're just going to get these old values have largely been formed by greed and money. So I think we have to relook at what we're trying to do here. If Meta or Facebook or whatever puts everything behind a paywall, you know, that only rich people can get to, you know, it's all that sort of stuff. That's about money. So we have to make things open. We have to make things accessible. I think I've seen the rise of the internet. Obviously, you know, it's happened sort of 25 years ago, really, for me. And it was done with a lot of utopian thought. So, you know, the sort of free sharing of information across the globe is a great utopian thought. And we are in a, you know, we do have that, you know. Admittedly, you know, people will say, well, there's no, you know, no freedom at all. What you put into Google, you know, it's not a free service. You are the commodity here. You're being used as the money. But we do have this access to global knowledge, which we didn't have before, which I think is fundamental. But we have to just keep on with to try and refine that utopian ideal, you know. And I think it demands quite a big change in what we think is important in life. I see very little sign of that happening. There are some moments of that happening. I think, you know, we are still trying to work out how to deal with this. But of course we are. You know, we've spent the last however many million years evolving into who we are, you know, and now all of a sudden we can all talk to each other. We couldn't before, 25 years ago, we couldn't. Now we can. You know, here we are sitting quite comfortably on a Zoom call from one side of the world to the other, quite happily chatting away. 25 years ago, this was impossible. So
we have 3 countries here: England,
Sorry?
Brazil, and Portugal. We are in 3 different countries, the 3 of us.
Indeed.
Brazil,
indeed. So,
Portugal, and England. Yeah.
excellent. Who's in Portugal?
I am in Portugal.
Whereabouts are you?
I am in Lisbon.
Oh, I was in Lisbon last week.
Oh, really? I wish I knew.
I was in Nazaré.
Oh, you were in Nazaré. Nazaré is amazing. They have those.
Yeah. Sorry,
The big waves.
We're going on tourists. No, I was in Nazaré photographing waves, photographing the ocean.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I'm trying to get the big 100-foot wave, which of course is not the right time of the year.
Not every time, eh? You have to be lucky to get it. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on one thing because you were talking about the equality in the space. I think when we look more from I think a metaverse point of view, right? I think now we have all this discussion about the DAOs, the DAOs, the communities, and because you really don't have a clear identity for those users, because in the blockchain you cannot really know the KYC as well.
Yeah.
I think that opens sometimes a little bit of a precedent for inequality, because we really, at the same time that we know that opens the doors for anyone to be in the space, for anyone to be part of the distribution of the wealth in the blockchain, we also don't know who they are. So a good example is sometimes we have like virtual land, right? And there is voting power associated with virtual land in DAOs. But that is exactly what the world is, right? If you have a lot of wealth, you have more power. So sometimes I feel that we have this new system and we have to understand how we are not replicating pre-existing problems in this new framework and how we can really make it equal, or more than equality, about equity, right, in this whole space. But this is a process. We're just starting this new stage of the internet. So, but just
it's a fundamental rethinking of how we are as people, you know.
Exactly.
Our interrelationship, you know, our personal interrelationship needs to change. I think there is, you know, we need to do a really fundamental rethink of what we've become and who we are. Not to try and go back to something from the past. I hate that idea. But to move forward into something which is better. You know, I find it very, the thing that really people often say to me, where do you get your ideas from, or what inspires you? People. Always people. You know, these people, you know, you guys, I mean, people you see, because it's fascinating, you know, and always surprising. I mean, it's, you know, when I go walking a lot just because I want to try and do lots of steps every day. So I often walk part of my day.
10,000 steps I saw in your Instagram,
step,
right?
very important. Yeah, trying to keep it together. And I've been doing it for years. But I meet people when I walk, and I get involved with people when I walk. I find it fascinating. You know, I'm always getting told off by the people with me, you shouldn't talk to people out of the blue. But I can't help it. I find it really, you know, just that connection, that human connection, for me is what I find so, you know, so amazing. And so so I think I without going into sort of rambling, I think we can look at the systems that, you know, make our world work, but I think it's the personal that's very important. You know, how we behave as people, and our lack of understanding of what we are. You know, people are always saying, oh, you know, what do you see? And what, it's not what you, photography is not about sight. It's about feeling. I never see a photograph. It's what you desire. So I don't think we even understand how we create things. I've got no idea how to take a good photograph. I wish I did. It's been something, you know, I don't feel any different today than I did, you know, whatever it was 45 years ago, whenever, I can't remember when I started, 1979, whatever that is. You know, I'm still just as terrified because I've got no idea how to take a photograph. You know, it's not like you can use a set of rules to do it. You have to keep looking within yourself. You have to kind of try and be exposed and open at the same time. So we don't understand what we are. We don't understand how we work. We don't understand our brains. We don't understand our hearts. We don't understand the relationships we have. We don't understand life. We're still completely lost, really. And I think we need to try and admit that. So I think, well, yes, you're totally right. We need to look at a new system. But I think the system comes from us as people. I don't think it comes from an imposed way of doing things, because that's all about something else. So, you know, ShowStudio is open to the public. So people can walk off the street into ShowStudio. We are, you know, we're not closed, we're not shut behind doors. So I see people randomly. You know, it's not like I don't see people. And I get such a surprise when I talk to people and meet people, you know, because everybody's different. Everybody is kind of, you know, absolutely has a different vision of things. So I think we're a long way off from understanding just what we are. Anyway, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, but anyway, there we go.
But this is so helpful to, you know, to listen to that, to be aware of that we actually don't know about anything, you know, that, and I think it's really nice to hear you talking about that. You should have like a podcast only about, not about photography or culture, but about contemporary life, about being in today's world, you know, it's really nice. But moving on, well, you've always been exploring different medias and now different immersive medias. Yeah. And I know you and Gigi connected firstly during the Art Week 2022 in Decentraland. And when you showcase a special sculpture, right? Can you, how was that experience? Was that your first experience in the metaverse in Decentraland?
For me or for Gigi?
For you, and then Gigi also will.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was my first experience in putting something into that sort of form of metaverse. I mean, in a way, ShowStudio has been a metaverse since its inception, really. But I think that the thing that, you know, that I realized in putting the icon one, and as you quite rightly say, you know, we put it in as a sculpture. And of course, as soon as I put it in as a sculpture, I thought, why on earth am I calling it a sculpture? It could, you know, move. It could reflect imagery. It could, you know, take on different forms. We won't go into the technical aspects of Decentraland just on that, but, you know, it could do. So why am I calling it a sculpture? So that identifies, I think, part of the problem with dealing with this new space is that we're dealing with it in definitions that are from another space. So I'm putting something that can walk and can talk and can move into a space and calling it a sculpture. It's not really the right word for it anymore. And so I think that's, for me, was part of a realization that actually we have to be very open-minded when we go into this space, and not just to to call things by names that we would do. We're putting them up in the, just around the corner or wherever. It has different ways, different possibilities. So I think that was a sort of, a clarification that we really have to be very open-minded when we approach these things.
And Gigi, for you, how was the process of adapting the original 3D files from Nick into a metaverse like Decentraland?
Yeah, I think that was interesting for the team because, of course, when you look into the Icon project, the visuals are like very high resolution. They are super realistic, very beautiful. And then when you go into, I think, the current metaverses, especially Decentraland, that it has a lower resolution, is for browser. Then there is a whole process of trying to reduce the file, make the file possible to exist in that spec, those specifications, but at the same time, keeping the nature of that file. Because I think when you exhibit an art piece such this one, you have to be very careful not to distort what it means or even the message is communicating. Oh.
Well, I'm going through that now because we're putting one in this week, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that it's quite key that we go through this process of talking to the team. We were talking to ShowStudio all the time and trying to get the approvals for the adapted files. And eventually we're able to make this huge sculpture in the metaverse, which I think also changed the scale, right? Because when you look at the piece as an NFT versus when you look at that in this space, I think it changes a little bit the scale of that object compared to your virtual body. So I think that for me was fascinating to see that in the art week and help on that process.
Nick, we have more like 7 minutes with you. So I would like to know if you can stay 10 minutes more so I can finish up the questions. If not, then I'll just...
Well, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So is this sculpture still available for us to go and see it?
Not in Decentraland. There's a new one.
Okay.
That's correct. And did you haven't missed something there?
No, I think that the old sculpture is still available, but we're preparing a new one for the Fashion Week, if I'm not mistaken, right? And there will be something new coming up, cooking.
Yeah, I've been speaking to Tom, who I work with, and also he's been speaking with David just to kind of see what we can do. I'm not sure we can do what I would like to do, but we'll see. We'll see. Depends on the time, as always.
So, Nick, you've always subverted and challenged stereotypical images of beauty, and which I think is so important. And your photos are timeless. And there are two of the images you've created that I never get tired of, and I think many of us don't get tired of it, which is Devon Naoki for Alexander McQueen in 1997. And also the cover of Homogenic by Bjork in collaboration with also McQueen and Katie England. So this is an unforgettable image, and it's almost 30 years old, right? So still relevant and still beautiful. So what do you think makes an image timeless? Why one photo lasts and the other doesn't?
I don't think you can say that. I don't know if anybody really knows, to be honest. You do the work you do and create the images you create. And I think they have to fit into people's minds. The nice thing is that people, so I do speak to a lot of people, and they, I'll be quite surprised when someone says, oh, this particular image is really important for me, and it's not one of the ones that I would have thought. So I think it's, one creates a lot of imagery, and I think it resonates with different people in different ways. The Devon one and the Bjork one are actually quite strangely linked, because Bjork, seeing the Devon one was very complimentary about it, and that was a little bit of a beginning for our journey together, for myself and Bjork. And I've just worked with Bjork last year, and she saw Icon 1. I was very inspired by that. So I think, often I can find things with Bjork that, that I'm doing that she likes, and that, she wants to sort of in some way be part of. And I think the whole of the sort of, the imagery that we were producing with Icon 1 felt very exciting to me. And I think that excitement was picked up on by Bjork, and she wanted to be part of that. So in a way, there's a synergy between Homogenic and Devon, there's a synergy between Giselle Icon 1 and Ovual, which Bjork released last year. And we're still working together in that. Bjork and I are still working to creating imagery around that. So I think there's a sort of synergy with those artists. And I think that's what happens in sometimes. The sort of creative relationships I've had throughout my life, the important ones, they're very profound. With people like Lady Gaga or Bjork or Yohji Yamamoto or Alexander McQueen. These are relationships which are like any other relationship you have with your lover or your partner or your husband or wife or whatever it would be. They are profound and they're very real. They're not in any way the same relationship you have with your partner, but they are as important, is what I'm trying to say. They're as I put a lot of love into all my work, and I wouldn't be able to do anything I do if I didn't really love it and didn't really believe in it. So I do think that you don't have that much space in life if you're working, with somebody like Alexander McQueen or John Galliano or Lady Gaga. You don't have that much. It's not just you don't have that much space. You don't have that need. You don't have that desire, emptiness. If you're, I'm a little bit careful about making too much of a similarity between, I have a wife. It's not the same relationship, but it is an important relationship. And I think, in the same way that you fall in love with somebody, you become in some way sort of immersed in that world. And to some degree, you fall in love with the people you work with because, you want to know about their world. I want to know what Bjork sees, what she dreams, the same thing with Alec. And I will often gravitate to people, whose work I like. I wouldn't, if I didn't like what they did, I'd find it quite hard to really be in that relationship. So I think there's a sort of similarity there in all of the work that I've done. I really care for the people I work with, and I really admire the people that I work with. I am very privileged to have been able to be inside the head of Alexander McQueen, John Galliano, Lady Gaga, all the people that I've spent a long time. And then they are normally quite long relationships, 10 years or so. They're important life relationships. One only lives to say 100. That's not that many relationships you can have. And so, I do immerse myself in them very, very fully. So it doesn't surprise me that Bjork and Devon were related in some artistic way, in the same way that Icon 1 and Bjork were related in an artistic way.
Yeah.
So it's important, but it's
no, you have it. This is very generous. As you're very generous as a photographer, as a storyteller, because we don't see what you see. We see what you and your partners at the time also dream and feel. So it's that's why you kind of manipulate reality, but considering everyone else's feelings and dreams and visions. So it's really nice.
I think that the difficulty there is just the idea of what reality is, because reality is so indefinable, to be honest. And we should be careful a little bit about holding reality as we perceive it in an everyday sense as to be the best form of what reality is. Reality can be a feeling that you have in your back of your mind, an unconscious feeling that is a reality too. We have to be careful that we don't separate things like in real life away from things like virtual life, because for some people, virtual life is actually much more fulfilling and much more important to them than the life they have away from their keyboard, and they are much freer when they're in that space. So I think we have to be careful with our definitions of reality, and over the years, I've had to deal with the question of portraying reality through photography. And I think photography really got itself into a nasty place with this right from the beginning, that it was supposed to be the thing that brought you reality. And of course it doesn't, it brings you opinion, and that's all. It doesn't bring you any reality. There is no reality that way. And photography is actually a very, very, very bad medium for conveying any sense of what we experience here. So, there's both a sort of desire in myself not to put this thing that we live every day as the sort of the real thing, the thing that's better in some way than the fantasy or the imagination or the virtual or whatever it is. It's just a different version. So that's why I picked you up on the word reality and manipulating reality. I don't feel that's what I do. When I'm trying to create an image or a sculpture or a film or whatever it is, I'm trying to show something I cannot see. I'm trying to show you something that the reason I'm doing it is to see it, is to understand it, to be part of it, to, in some way bring it to life. But it isn't that it's something I can see that you can't. It's something that I can't see either until I create it. The desire is to create it. The desire is to explore it. And once you've explored it, you then move on. So there's no desire to repeat it. There's no desire to go back and take the same picture I took of Devon, 30 years ago, or whatever.
You don't fall in love with your pictures. You don't fall in love with your pictures, and in a way that you want to do it again or be with that, in that scenario again. You don't.
No, I fall in love with the people I work with far too often, I'm afraid. Whether it's the the designers or the people around me, the art directors, because they're inspiring people. So I fall in love with that. I fall in love with the process of working. I fall in love with the way that you can attain an understanding of life through working. That's what I fall in love with. I don't fall in love with my own imageries. Unfortunately, the truth is, when you see one of your own images from the person that is the creator of it, you only really see the mistakes. It's very, very hard to see it as if you haven't lived through it. So you just see where it's not as good as it should be, which is why for a long time I wouldn't have any of my work up on the walls. I refuse to have, because it's like a deforming mirror. You just see all the things you don't want to see about yourself. Any more than I want to have mirrors all the way around me. I don't want to have my images up. It's slightly different now because the space is a bit of a gallery too, and people come and they look at my work, and so this is what I work on the walls now. Not this lovely picture, but I would on the whole, I don't want to be surrounded by my work. And also, it's something that's, in a way, when you're creating a piece of work, is to get you from place A to place B, and then from place B to place C. You don't want to go back to place A. You want to keep on going. So I don't see work as a kind of a trophy. I don't see my work as a finite thing. It's just part of a conversation which hopefully keeps on going.
So did you had to leave us? So I have only more 2 questions. Okay.
Okay, I'll be quick.
Right. You were saying earlier that you still feel fear when you still feel photography for you is something new. You still feel fear when you're shooting. So I think this is how you put yourself in that position of an absolute beginner, to quote David Bowie, So how can you make that after 30, 40 years working and with all the experience you've got, the amazing people you've been connected to through photography, when you don't feel that fear, is because there's something wrong about it, or how is it for you?
It's an interesting question. I think we touched on that a little bit in what we were talking about just before. But I think that there is a desire to always push forward and always to I'm not saying get better, but do new things, or to try again, or to try harder, or to get further into the emotions you were trying to get into before, or make the images more performative in terms of that they touch people more. So you always want to push things forward, and partly not really knowing how to do that. I mean, technically I know how to do it, but emotionally I don't know how to do it. So I think there is a fear that, I think it's quite a natural fear of performance, because you have to stand by a camera, or in front or behind or next to a camera, and create an image of somebody in front of them that they're going to love and that you're going to love. And of course, there is a fear, just a human fear of failure. I think that's quite healthy, to be honest. The fear of failure makes you focus. It's a bit like, you have to be prepared to just run and jump off the cliff, and just throw yourself into the void every time. Because that's how you struggle to remain, alive. You struggle to get an image. You struggle to create something. So I think fear is important, failure is important. All those things are important because you don't want to repeat yourself. What's the point? Well, so it is frightening. I've got pictures to take on Sunday. I don't know how I'm going to make them any good. I don't want to just repeat the process I've done in the past. I want to find something new. How will I find it? Will I be acute enough or mentally agile enough to see the things that I can't see? Imagine them. Will they be important when I do see them? All those sorts of things aren't questions which are easy to answer. And so there is a fear. I just recently, and I don't want to go on too long because I know we're going to go a short time, I've been trying to deal with that because I've given this answer for quite a long time now. People say, are you still scared when you take a photograph? And I say, yes, always. And I think, well, is that good? Is that just another repetition of a way of being, which actually is beneficial? Why should I indulge the fear? I can acknowledge the fear, but not necessarily indulge it. So maybe it's better to take the fear out of it and to try and create without. It's a theory, not a thought out thing. But I guess the simple answer to your question is because you always want to get better. You always want to do something which is however you term better, but you always want to get better. And because you don't really know how to do that, there's a fear that you won't be able to achieve that.
That's brilliant. And so, just the last one. So what the future look like for you? How do you see it? You excited about it?
Well, the future, as we said right at the beginning of this, is so different now from the past. It would be sort of, remiss. It's like going back to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and saying, tell me about television. We don't know what's coming next. And it's so fast. The future, if you want, if we can be sort of romantic about it, is that we are leaving an eternal presence. So we are now putting so much information, so much intelligence of ourselves into a place which will continue to evolve, that we can keep on, that we are not defined by our physical, our corporal being, that our intelligence is what lives. So that is my hope. My hope is that we are moving towards that situation. But in terms of a more practical and perhaps a more immediate version of that, I think all of the new technologies, all the AI and the 3D scanning that we do, and all of the different ways of creating imagery and how we can change things, and how I said, before I can make, now I can make, things that just, musical paintings or whatever would it be, the sculptures that walk, icon one that will be able to be your friend, that there's performances which people can then use those performances to make their own performances. That's all my work now. It isn't just creating a photograph. I have no desire to stop creating photographs, but the other possibilities, whatever they are, I think are fascinating. We look at things like sculpture, which I love. Sculpture is a huge passion for me. But sculptures could be interactive. Why could we not, present ourselves through sculptures in a different way to how, my problem with sculpture is it's very still. And actually, maybe it should be a more living thing. But then is it sculpture anymore? So that's what I say. It's a bit like trying to talk about television at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. You haven't got words to do it. I think the future is incredibly exciting. I'm incredibly positive about it, and incredibly, incredibly enthusiastic about it. I don't fear the future. That doesn't mean to say that I'm oblivious to different problems that, of course, will arise. But let's deal with those problems. Let's get involved. So I think one becomes more and more fulfilled by the possibilities that are coming towards us. And more and more, everything's changing. And in some ways, if you don't fear change, that makes that a lot more exciting.
Nick, thank you so much. This goes, we dedicate this to all the romantics out there. And it's truly been an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's very, very lovely to speak to you. All right.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nick and Gigi, and thank you for listening to this podcast from start to finish. You can visit us on Metaverse Fashion Talks on Instagram. This podcast was produced by ShowStudio and it's a collaboration between Metaverse Fashion Talks and FFW.